Britt wakes up on an aircraft, sitting next to Jason. Jason is eager to learn more about Croatia now that she is awake. Britt claims she was conducting research on cold fusion. Jason realizes she isn't telling him everything and inquires about her employer. She claims she doesn't know because she just reported to Pascal. Jason doesn't trust her and warns her about Jack Brennan, who would press her for answers given the WSB's interest in the lab. As they continue to talk, and she makes it plain that she wants nothing from him, he mentions that he has experience returning to life after death. He believes she'll have to deal with legal difficulties, as well as individuals who thought she died and missed her. He also assures Britt that whatever she is hiding, she does not have to keep it from him. Trina stops by her mother's office to see if Drew is the only one who has evidence of what she did. Trina expresses her concern and desire to assist her mother, but Portia only requests that she leave the situation alone. Trina is concerned that Drew may still divulge her secrets. Portia has no idea what will happen, but she refuses to live in fear, and if the truth comes out, she will face the consequences. Trina is pleased to hear this, and they embrace. What does Carly want from Drew? Carly arrives to see Drew and badgers Liz for his room number. Lucas confronts his sister, asking how many people are aware of her threat to kill Drew. Carly thinks she can thank Liz for this, and Liz insists Lucas is the only person she told. Carly would prefer never to see Drew's face again, but he is here in the hopes that Drew will listen to her. Willow tells Drew that she is pleased he will be well and wonders if he recalls who shot him. He does not. Willow, strangely enough, informs him that he can thank Tracy for finding him and phoning 911. She saved his life. He claims he's alive due of his own strength, which stems from a desire to be with her and their children. Liz approaches Lucas in the hallways and warns him that it's just a matter of time until Drew informs the police that she witnessed Carly threaten him. Lucas hopes whoever shot Drew gets away with it, because Drew brought it upon himself. Back in Drew's room, Carly appears and says she believes the rumors are true, and Willow is back with the jerk. Carly gets straight to the point. Scout left Lila's kids and returned to the QS, so Carly asks if he may stay with them. Drew declines, and Scout is better off with Willow. Carly asks if he can put his daughter first for once. Drew urges she be concerned about her own child, as he expects Michael to be caught soon. Carly claims he knows Michael did not shoot him and is only accusing Michael in order to reunite Wiley and Amelia with Willow. Carly highlights the enormous number of those who want him dead. He mentions that she threatened him, which suggests that she may have shot him in the back. Carly informs Drew that he and Willow are beyond hope. She storms out. Does Curtis have an alibi? Curtis arrives to speak with Anna, while Martin serves as his advisor. They discuss Curtis' feud with Drew over Aurora, as well as Curtis accusing Drew of abusing his position to have his aunt probed. Anna wonders if he can explain his whereabouts when Drew was shot. Curtis says he dropped his aunt off at home around 8:30 p.m. and then called Alexis at 9:15 p.m. He went to his office at the Savoy to unwind, but no one saw him. He later met Jordan for drinks from 10 p.m. to midnight, and then went home. Anna reports that he was alone at the Savoy when Drew was shot, which places him at the top of the suspect list. Will Dante believe Michael's story? Dante arrives at Jacinda's room at the Metro Court, asking inquiries. She allows him in, and Michael emerges from the restroom shirtless. Michael dresses, and Dante believes this is a coincidence because Michael recently mentioned Jacinda as his alibi for Drew's shooting. Jacinda is delighted to answer any questions Dante may have. She tells Dante that she ran into Michael the other night at the Port Charles Grill, and they returned here. Michael left at 10:30 p.m. Jacinda exits to shower, leaving Dante and Michael alone. Dante quickly informs Michael that he does not believe he jumped into bed with Jacinda at random, but rather that he hired her to be his alibi. Dante wants Michael to tell him the truth. Was he with Jacinda when Drew was shot? What advice does Nina provide Lulu? Nina visits Lulu at her home and tells that Jack Brennan attempted to recruit her to persuade her to let Charlotte see Valentine. Nina makes it clear that she would never jeopardize her connection with Charlotte, and she does not support Brennan's tactics, but she should allow Charlotte to consider visiting her father. Nina predicts that Brennan will find a way to contact Charlotte and inform her about her father, which would cause Charlotte to despise her mother. Nina proposes that she take control of the situation and utilize it to her advantage, becoming Charlotte's hero by allowing her to see Valentine. She can even define the boundaries and ask to attend the meeting. What happened to Rocco now? At the Baden Cafe, Albrecht meets Rocco, Charlotte, and Outback. They speak, and Albrecht leaves to place her order. Rocco then asks Charlotte not to tell their mother about this because she dislikes him asking questions about Britt. Charlotte pledges to be silent and knows where he is coming from. She avoids bringing up her father because it clearly upsets their mother. Albrecht brings food around and encourages them to fill up because Rocco is too slim. Outback suddenly breaks free and dashes out of the cafe. Rocco soon returns, wounded from his head after colliding with a tree branch. Charlotte is still seeking for Outback, and Albrecht claims he has a terrible cut that will require stitches. Rocco needs to call his mother and explain what happened, as well as the fact that Dr. O wants him to go to the hospital for stitches. Lulu says she will meet him at the hospital. Back at Lulu's, she invites Nina to accompany her, as she may require a buffer between her and Albrecht. Lulu then calls Dante and interrupts his conversation with Michael regarding Jacinda. Dante, Lulu, and Nina arrive at the hospital to see Albrecht holding Rocco. Rocco swears he is okay, but Charlotte has yet to find Outback. Albrecht is shocked to see Nina. Nina explains that she was with Lulu when the call came in. Lucas summons Rocco, and the youngster enters to be sewn up. Dante and Lulu thank Albrecht for looking after their son. Curtis stops into Portia's office to alert her that she is being questioned by Anna. He is a prime suspect with no alibi, but fortunately, Portia's name did not come up. Portia despises the fact that he is caught up in the consequences. Curtis mentions that she can do anything for him. Returning to Jacinda's room, she asks Michael if his brother believes their narrative. Michael claims he didn't, but he still needs to report her statement. He thanks her for her assistance. She claims it also helps her since if anyone finds out she returned to blackmail Drew, she may be a suspect as well. Carly arrives at Anna's office to inform her before she learns from someone else that she threatened to shoot Drew. But she was with Jack Brennan that night. Anna knows, but she also knows Jack is a great liar. Drew tells Willow in his room that, while he does not know who shot him, Michael's death benefits them. Curtis reveals that terrible memories can resurface at any time. In the show's finale, he warns Portia that if people find out Drew damaged their marriage, it will reflect negatively on him. Until an arrest is made, they must pretend as if their marriage is still intact. At the hotel, Jacinda asks Michael what will happen if Dante continues to dig. She proposes that he tell her about any visible scars he has in order to make their story seem more credible. Willow informs Drew that if Michael does not shoot him, whoever does can try again. Drew is willing to take the chance, and if Michael is convicted, their family will be complete again. Willow rejects him and is determined to reclaim her children, even if it means going to any lengths. At the PCPD, Anna tells Carly that she doesn't trust Jack and that she should be cautious around him. Carly claims they have an agreement and Jack would never lie to her. Britt eventually returns to General Hospital after Jason walks in. She walks through the front doors, and Liz is stunned to see her and blurts out, "Oh my God, Britt?" Everyone else, Dante, Nina, Albrecht, and Lulu turn around and see Britt. Lulu gasps, "We thought you were," Britt says, "dead?" "Believe it or not, I'm back." General Hospital spoilers are in for Thursday, September 11th. 2025. Fans can expect the next episode to feature a shocking return to Port Charles. Jason Morgan gets stonewalled. Plus, Lucas Jones interrogates Carly Spencer. Keep reading and let's talk about what is coming up in the next episode of the ABC soap opera. Shocking return to Port Charles. Let's start off with the shocking return to Port Charles. This is definitely Britt Westbourne, according to the preview clip for tomorrow's episode. The brunette was just rescued by Jason, but she's still keeping pretty quiet about what she's been doing all this time. Even though they have a history, Britt has clearly been through a lot. I almost sense some post-traumatic stress disorder in the guarded way she reacts to Jason sometimes. It's almost like she's apprehensive or scared at times, but then acts normal other times. Read more, find out what happened on the last episode of GH. In any case, that will be a bombshell for the people of Port Charles. Rocco Falconeri will likely want to get to know Britt. However, what will Dante Falconeri and Lulu Spencer say about this situation? Allowing Rocco and Liesl Albrecht to bond is one thing, but for them to allow Britt? I'm not so sure that will happen. Read this. General Hospital recap September 10th, Michael interrogated, Carly advises Lulu, Jack offers Nina a deal. Lucas Jones interrogation over at the hospital, everyone is wondering who shot Drew Kane. As the police investigate, Lucas corners Carly. The surgeon demands to know if she is responsible. After all, she did publicly threaten Drew, but so did a lot of people. Of course, Jack Brennan told Carly it was a good thing they were together at the time of Drew's shooting. Lulu Spencer's Discovery General Hospital spoilers for Thursday, September 11th reveal that Lulu will make a discovery. This will have to do with Nina Reeves. Since Jack Brennan just gave Nina a proposition, and Lulu recently exchanged words with the WSB boss, how could this story go? The preview clip shows Nina telling Lulu to use it to her advantage. The journalist's eyebrows do arch up, so it sounds like she's already getting an idea. Thursday, September 11th, 2025 fans will also see Jason get stonewalled. This is by Britt on the airplane back home. The right-hand man assures her that whatever she's hiding, she can confide in him. However, Britt doesn't look too sure about that. Meanwhile, Dante will be completely caught off guard. This could be about Britt's return, but it could also be about the case into Drew's shooting. In any case, there are multiple bombshells and curveballs this week, so stay tuned. Which storyline are you looking forward to seeing the most on Thursday, September 11th, 2025? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Keep watching the soap on ABC to find out what happens next. The hospital corridors buzzed with the usual chaos, beeping monitors, hurried footsteps, and the low hum of urgent conversations. Willow Corinthos, her face pale but resolute, stood outside the pediatric ward, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. She had been through hell and back, fighting for her children, Wiley and Amelia, who had been caught in the crossfire of a bitter custody battle with Nina Reeves. The court's decision had been a gut punch, temporary custody to Nina, her mother, who had wielded every ounce of her crimson influence and legal maneuvering to paint Willow as an unfit parent. It wasn't true, of course, but truth had a way of bending under the weight of power in Port Charles. Willow's heart ached with every moment she was separated from her kids, their laughter and tiny hands haunting her dreams. She tried playing by the rules, court hearings, mediation, character witnesses, but Nina's resources were endless, and Willow was running out of time. Desperation had a way of reshaping a person, and Willow felt it now, a cold, sharp clarity cutting through her usual moral compass. She'd always prided herself on being better than the schemers and manipulators who thrived in this town, but pride wouldn't bring her children home. Drew Kane, her ex and a man with a knack for bending the rules himself, had offered her a way out. It wasn't clean, and it wasn't noble, but it was a plan. Drew had connections, shady ones, forged in his days navigating the underbelly of Port Charles's power struggles. He knew people who could dig up dirt on Nina, the kind of dirt that wouldn't just sway a judge but bury Nina's case entirely. Blackmail, coercion, maybe even a little sabotage. Drew's world was murky, and Willow was about to dive in. She met him in the back booth of Charlie's pub, the dim lighting casting shadows across his face. Drew leaned forward, his voice low, laying out the plan. A private investigator he trusted had already started tailing Nina's associates, looking for anything, financial missteps, hidden affairs, or even a whisper of criminal activity. Nina wasn't a saint, no one in Port Charles was. The trick was catching her in something undeniable. Willow listened, her stomach churning as Drew described forging documents to exaggerate Nina's misdeeds, maybe planting a story in the press to turn public opinion. It was dirty, and it went against everything Willow believed in, but the thought of Wiley's confused tears when she'd last seen him, asking why he couldn't come home, pushed her forward. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. Do it. Across town, the halls of General Hospital were about to witness a different kind of storm. Britt Westbourne, presumed dead after a brutal attack by the Hook killer years ago, stepped through the sliding glass doors, her presence like a thunderclap in the sterile air. Nurses froze, their charts slipping from their hands. Doctors stopped mid-conversation, their jaws dropping. Britt's leather jacket was slightly worn, her hair a shade darker than anyone remembered, but those sharp eyes and that unmistakable swagger left no doubt it was her. She carried a small duffel bag slung over one shoulder, her expression a mix of defiance and exhaustion, as if she'd been running for years and had finally decided to stop. Whispers spread like wildfire. Britt was dead. Everyone knew it. Her mother, Liesl Albrecht, had mourned her, spiraling into grief-fueled vengeance. Her friends, Maxie, Nina, even Jason, had grieved at her memorial, their lives reshaped by her loss. Yet here she was, striding toward the nurse's station like she'd never left. Epiphany Johnson, usually unflappable, stared at Britt as if seeing a ghost. "Britt," she managed, her voice cracking. Britt offered a small, tired smile. "Miss me?" The hospital erupted into chaos. Phones buzzed as staff texted friends, rumors flying faster than the truth could catch up. Britt didn't offer explanations right away, brushing past the stunned onlookers to find Elizabeth Weber, one of the few people she trusted. Elizabeth was in the break room, sipping coffee, when Britt walked in. The cup slipped from Elizabeth's hand, shattering on the floor. "You're alive?" Elizabeth stammered, her eyes searching Britt's face for answers. Britt nodded, her expression softening. "It's a long story, Liz. And not a pretty one." Back at Charlie's, Willow was grappling with the weight of her decision. Drew's plan was moving fast, too fast. The investigator had already uncovered a lead, a questionable deal Nina had made to secure a major advertiser for Crimson, one with ties to a known money launderer. It wasn't airtight, but Drew was confident they could spin it into something damning. He suggested leaking it to the invader, knowing Alexis would run with a story that juicy. Willow hesitated, her mind flashing to her kids' faces. Was this what she'd become? Someone who played these games, who stooped to Nina's level? But then she thought of Amelia's tiny hand clutching hers during their last supervised visit, and her resolve hardened. "Make the call," she told Drew, her voice steadier now. Meanwhile, Britt's return was unraveling secrets of its own. She sat with Elizabeth in a quiet corner of the hospital, explaining what she could. After the Hook attack, she'd barely survived, waking up in a safe house run by a shadowy figure who'd owed her a favor from her Phazon days. To protect herself and her family, she'd stayed hidden, moving from city to city, always looking over her shoulder. But Port Charles was home, and she was tired of running. She'd come back to reclaim her life, even if it meant facing the chaos she'd left behind. Elizabeth listened, torn between relief and anger. "You let us think you were dead," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Britt nodded, her eyes glistening. "I know. I'm sorry." Word of Britt's return reached Nina, who was in her office at Crimson, plotting her next move in the custody battle. The news hit her like a freight train. Britt, her friend, her confidant, was alive. Nina's mind raced. Britt knew things about her, things Nina had buried deep. If Britt was back, would she talk? Would she expose the secrets Nina had shared in moments of vulnerability? Nina grabbed her coat and headed for the hospital, determined to confront Britt before anyone else could. Willow, unaware of the hospital's drama, was now neck-deep in Drew's scheme. The Invader ran the story, a carefully crafted hit piece that painted Nina as a shady businesswoman with ties to organized crime. The fallout was immediate, social media exploded, and Nina's carefully curated image began to crack. Willow watched the chaos unfold from her phone, guilt gnawing at her. She'd wanted her kids back, but at what cost? Drew, sensing her unease, placed a hand on her shoulder. "This is how it works, Willow. You play the game, or you lose." She pulled away, unsure if she could live with the person she was becoming. At General Hospital, Nina arrived just as Britt was leaving Elizabeth's side. The two women locked eyes across the crowded lobby, the air between them electric. "Britt," Nina said, her voice a mix of shock and suspicion. Britt's lips curved into a wry smile. "Nina. You look like you've seen a ghost." The tension was palpable, drawing every eye in the room. Nina stepped closer, lowering her voice. "What are you doing here? And what do you want?" Britt's smile faded, her eyes hardening. "I'm here to take my life back. And I'm not here to play your games." The confrontation was cut short by a commotion at the elevators. Liesel Albrecht, alerted to her daughter's return, burst into the lobby, tears streaming down her face. "Mein Liebling," she cried, throwing her arms around Britt. The reunion was raw, emotional, and public, leaving Nina standing awkwardly to the side. Britt's return was already shifting the dynamics of Port Charles, and Nina knew it could derail her plans. If Britt talked, if she revealed what she knew about Nina's past, the custody battle could collapse, and so could Nina's entire world. Willow, meanwhile, was spiraling. The Invader's story had worked too well. Nina's legal team was scrambling, and public opinion was turning against her, but Willow couldn't shake the feeling that she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She went to the park where she used to take Wiley and Amelia, sitting alone on a bench, staring at the empty swings. Drew found her there, his expression unreadable. "It's working," he said. "Nina's on the ropes." Willow nodded, but her heart wasn't in it. "At what cost, Drew? What am I teaching my kids if I do this?" Drew didn't have an answer, and for the first time, Willow saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Back at the hospital, Britt was navigating her own minefield. Liesel refused to let her out of her sight, bombarding her with questions and demands for answers. Maxie Jones arrived next, her shock giving way to tears as she hugged Britt tightly. "You're back," Maxie kept repeating, as if saying it would make it real. But not everyone was thrilled. Sonny Corinthos, alerted by Nina, showed up, his presence commanding the room. He and Britt had a complicated history, and his eyes were wary as he approached. "You've got a lot of explaining to do," he said. Britt met his gaze, unflinching. "Don't worry, Sonny. I'm not here to stir up trouble. I just want my life back." But trouble was inevitable. Britt's return wasn't just a personal resurrection, it was a catalyst. Her presence forced everyone to confront their pasts, Nina's secrets, Sonny's loyalties, even Willow's moral compromises. As the day wore on, Willow got a call from her lawyer. The judge had scheduled an emergency hearing in light of the new allegations against Nina. It was the break Willow had been waiting for, but instead of triumph, she felt hollow. She'd sunk to Drew's level, maybe lower, and the victory tasted like ash. Britt, meanwhile, was already planning her next move. She wasn't naive, she knew Port Charles was a snake pit, and her return would make her a target. But she was done hiding. She'd survived the hook, survived years on the run, and she wasn't about to let Nina or anyone else push her out again. As she stood in the hospital's chapel, lighting a candle for the years she'd lost, she made a silent vow: she'd fight for her place here, no matter the cost. The threads of Port Charles were unraveling, pulled loose by Willow's desperate gambit and Britt's shocking return. Nina, cornered and furious, began to suspect who was behind the smear campaign. She wasn't going down without a fight, and she had her own resources to call on. The custody battle was far from over, and with Britt back in the mix, old alliances were crumbling, and new ones were forming. The hospital, the town, the people, they were all on the brink of something seismic, and no one would emerge unscathed. Willow sat at home that night, staring at a photo of her kids. She'd done what she had to, hadn't she? But the question lingered, gnawing at her conscience: was it worth it? Across town, Britt stood on the hospital roof, looking out at the city she'd left behind. She was back, but she wasn't the same. Port Charles wasn't either. And as the stars glittered above, the stage was set for a reckoning no one could predict. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Willow's lawyer pushed hard at the emergency hearing, presenting the allegations against Nina as evidence of her unsuitability as a guardian. The judge, swayed by the media storm, granted Willow temporary custody pending a full investigation. Wiley and Amelia were back in her arms, their laughter filling her apartment, but the victory felt fragile. Nina's fury was palpable, and Willow knew she'd made an enemy for life. Drew, ever the pragmatist, urged her to stay the course, to keep pushing until Nina was out of the picture for good. But Willow was starting to see the cost of his methods, not just to Nina, but to her own soul. Britt, meanwhile, was navigating her own battles. Her return had stirred up more than just emotions, it had reopened old wounds and unanswered questions. Liesl was relentless, demanding to know every detail of Britt's years away, while Maxie tried to pull her back into the fold, offering her a job at Crimson to keep her close. But Britt wasn't ready to settle into her old life. She had unfinished business, starting with the hospital. She met with Monica Quartermain, who was stunned but pragmatic, offering Britt a chance to reclaim her position as a doctor. It wasn't a warm welcome, but it was a start. Nina, reeling from the custody blow, turned her attention to Britt. She didn't trust her friend's sudden reappearance, and she wasn't wrong to be wary. Britt had always been sharp, observant, and unafraid to call Nina out. If anyone could unravel Nina's carefully constructed facade, it was Britt. Nina invited her to lunch, a tense affair at the Metro Court, where every word was a chess move. "Why now, Britt?" Nina asked, her tone deceptively light. "Why come back after all this time?" Britt sipped her wine, her eyes never leaving Nina's. "Because I'm tired of running. And because I have nothing left to lose." The lunch ended without bloodshed, but the lines were drawn. Nina knew Britt was a wild card, and she couldn't afford any surprises, not with Willow closing in. She hired her own investigator, not to clear her name, but to dig into Britt's past. Where had she been? Who had helped her? And what did she know? Nina wasn't about to let Britt's return upend her life without a fight. Willow, meanwhile, was struggling to keep her family together. Wiley and Amelia were home, but the questions in their eyes, about Nina, about the tension in their mother's voice, were impossible to ignore. She tried to shield them, filling their days with games and stories, but the weight of her choices hung over her. Drew's influence was inescapable, his confidence both a lifeline and a chain. He pushed her to keep up the pressure, to leak more stories, to ensure Nina could never come back. But Willow was starting to pull away, questioning whether she could live with the collateral damage. At the hospital, Britt was finding her footing, but it wasn't easy. Her old colleagues were divided, some welcomed her back, others whispered about her absence, wondering what she was hiding. Sonny paid her another visit, this time in her office, his tone less hostile but no less guarded. You're stirring things up, Britt, he said. People are nervous. She leaned back in her chair, unfazed. Good. They should be. Sonny didn't smile, but there was a flicker of respect in his eyes. He knew a survivor when he saw one. As the weeks passed, the lines between Willow's fight and Britt's return began to blur. Nina, desperate to regain control, made a bold move. She offered Britt a deal. Stay quiet about the past, and Nina would back her return, maybe even fund a new wing at the hospital in Britt's name. It was a bribe, plain and simple, and Britt laughed in her face. You think you can buy me, Nina? I'm not that desperate. The rejection stung, and Nina's next move was less subtle. She leaked a story to the invader, hinting that Britt's disappearance was tied to criminal activity, not just survival. The story hit Britt hard, but she wasn't surprised. Port Charles played dirty, and she'd expected pushback. What she didn't expect was Willow reaching out. The two women met at Kelly's, an unlikely pair bound by their mutual distrust of Nina. Willow was hesitant, still raw from her own moral compromises, but Britt's blunt honesty was a strange comfort. You did what you had to for your kids, Britt said, stirring her coffee. Don't beat yourself up. But don't think it's over. Nina doesn't quit. Willow nodded, her resolve strengthening. Neither do I. Their conversation planted the seeds of an alliance, one that could shift the balance of power in Port Charles. Britt had no love for Nina's games, and Willow was done playing by Drew's rules. Together, they could take Nina down, not with lies or blackmail, but with the truth. Britt knew things about Nina's past, things she'd never shared, and Willow had the determination to see it through. But the truth was a dangerous weapon in Port Charles, and neither woman was naive enough to think it would come without a cost. As the custody battle headed toward its final hearing, the town braced for impact. Nina was fighting back, her resources dwindling but her desperation growing. Britt was carving at her place, one step at a time, but the whispers about her past were getting louder. And Willow, caught between her love for her children and the person she wanted to be, faced a choice: hold on to the victory she'd clawed her way toward, or risk it all for a cleaner fight. Port Charles was a pressure cooker, and with Britt's return and Willow's gambit, the lid was about to blow. The final hearing loomed, and Willow stood in her apartment, holding Wiley and Amelia close. She'd fought so hard, sunk so low, and now she wasn't sure who she was anymore. But as she looked into her children's eyes, she knew one thing: she'd do it all again. Across town, Britt stood at her hospital window, watching the city lights. She was back, and she wasn't going anywhere. Port Charles was hers, and she'd fight for it, just as Willow fought for her family. The battles were far from over, but for now, both women stood their ground, ready for whatever came next.